Welcome to Three Count Commentaries. This is your host, MagMongoSlade. While some of you have chosen to torture yourselves watching 3 hours of AEW between Collision and Battle of Belts, I chose a different form of torture. The rebirth of TNA Wrestling, Hard to Kill, January the 13th, 2023. We're going to talk about this show and the implications of which, and there's a lot to discuss here. So let's have some fun. First, let's talk about the attendance. So they're in Las Vegas. I think I said the Palms Casino Resort or whatever they're calling it. They said that this was the highest attendance for an Impact/TNA event in 8 years. WrestleTix suggests that there was about 1,500 tickets distributed. That would be sold and comps. The building was set up for about 1,500. So the last I checked, there's only about 60 seats open. So they still did pretty good. Assuming that there was 1,500 people in the building, because we're getting into the waves and the weeds of all this. Tickets distributed does not mean people who showed up. Also does not mean tickets paid. So you could have distributed 1,500 tickets, but only 900 of them are paid, and only 700 people showed up. Again, we don't know how many people were actually in the building unless somebody cares to go and see. But there were seemingly more people at a book sale than there was in this show. But they said this is the highest attendance, which is a positive, because I would imagine the attendance wasn't pretty good a couple of years ago when, we're in the middle of the pandemic and nobody was there. And it seemed like for a while, it took a while for the people to come back. So their highest attendance in 8 years. People are excited for TNA. I'm excited too. Let's see what they got for us. We're going to skip over the pre-show because I didn't watch all of it. I did see clips, however, of Joe Hendry being involved with AJ Francis, aka Top Dollar. So Top Dollar, who was released from WWE, of course, for the second time, he has been floating around on the indies. I think he did some work for GCW, and now he's doing TNA Impact. He brings DJ Who Kid along with him. Who Kid, of course, was the guy who was backstage at AEW. I don't know how Who Kid all of a sudden started getting mixed up in pro wrestling. Maybe I need to take a look into that. But he used to be the DJ for G Unit. He used to be their. He used to do their mixtapes for them. So he's been around for a long time. Worked for 50 Cent for a long time, and now he's involved in wrestling backstage at AEW, and now he's backstage at TNA. I don't know what him and AJ Francis were doing, nor do I care, if we're being honest. I don't like Top Dollar. Not really a big fan. I'll talk about, this as a signing in a moment. I guess you pretty much got my idea already. But Joe Hendry, of course, made a song where he mocked AJ Francis and basically saying how he tried to be a pro wrestler, how he tried to play a football player. But in reality, he's just like a Cheez-It champion. And it was a great picture of Top Dollar with the Cheez-It championship belt. I think he was doing some kind of promotional thing for Cheez-It, and they gave him a championship belt. And at least that's what I thought initially. And then I looked it up, and I found out that AJ Francis was hosting the Citrus Bowl, which was sponsored by Cheez-It. And he had to present the MVP of the game with the Cheez-It championship belt. So this was his job. This was, of course, after he was released from WWE already. So the Cheez-It champion, AJ, he wasn't even the Cheez-It champion. He was the guy holding the belt for the real Cheez-It champion. So this is even more pathetic than Joe Hendry made it sound. So as Joe Hendry was eating Cheez-Its in the ring, he got beat up by Who Kid and Top Dollar. That was very entertaining. It was very interesting that it was more pathetic than Joe Hendry made it sound, because he's not even the real champion. He's just like the guy who holding the belt and took pictures with it proudly, I guess. Hilarious. AJ Francis as a signing, I don't see the value in Top Dollar. I really don't. He speaks very well. I have listened to him talk. He just sounds like a very intelligent brother. In terms of wrestling, though, I don't see where the value lies. I haven't seen anything in him, wrestling wise, that would make you want to give him money to wrestle. Now, maybe he's a good spokesman. Maybe he's got connections. That could work. But as a wrestler, I just don't see the benefit in having top dollar on your roster. That's just me. Maybe you guys feel differently. If you are a big fan of AJ Francis, let me know. And also, you probably need to get your head checked. Who also needs their head checked? The guy who's running this show, who would be Scott D'Amore, because he continues in 2024 to put Tommy Dreamer on television. Tommy Dreamer was still the digital media champion at the end of Impact. So he lost the belt to Crazy Steve. So at least there's a positive that they changed the title. But for God's sake, Tommy Dreamer's still wrestling. I talk every time I do an Impact / TNA pay-per-view, I say pretty much the same thing. They need two things. They need to sign some people, and they need a huge purge of talent. On that list should be Tommy Dreamer. Why would you have wide back? Tommy Dreamer is built like a bookshelf. Why would you have that guy on your roster wrestling? Tommy Dreamer's prime was 23 years ago. 23 years ago. And he wasn't even that great then, if we being honest. But Tommy Dreamer still getting the job in modern day. It is what it is. He loses the belt to Crazy Steve. Good for Crazy Steve, I suppose. Do your thing, boy, as they say. As you do. Anyway, let's get into the main show. So Eric Young does the big Triple H-like intro where he says he's tired of TNA, is tired of being slept on, that TNA is back, and this is their truth, and this is going to be their truth, and all this kind of stuff. He wants to fire up the roster and fire up the fan base, and everybody's got these yellow towels that they're spinning around in circles, kind of like the terrible towels and the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it's the energy is there. The energy is good. I like the energy of it. I'm not really a big fan of Eric Young, but he's a guy who's synonymous with this company. I think he's been there since the beginning. And I guess he's one of Scott D'Amore's best good friends. And this, of course, it led everybody to think that Triple H was really there. Because for some odd reason, these people can't tell the difference because he's bald and he's got a beard. But also, he played basically the Triple H role here. I guess he's a producer there or something. So Eric Young comes out to fire up the crowd. The wrestlers themselves were on the stage, which was an interesting twist that you would have all the wrestlers on the stage. But I guess it was just their way of fully getting people involved in the rebirth of TNA. So we start the show with Knockout Ultimate X. The winner will get a Knockouts Championship match. The contenders are Alicia Edwards, Zaya Brookside, Tasha Steelz, Danny Luna, Jody Threat, and the winner was Giselle Shaw. So Zaya Brookside and Danny Luna both were at one point in time signed to NXT UK. Zaya Brookside she's an interesting case because she was very young when she was brought in, as I said. She was apparently not asked to relocate to regular NXT when they shut down NXT UK. She might have been one of the people that they were kind of putting on a waiting list when they started up NXT Europe or whatever the hell they're going to start doing. But she decided to jump on over to Impact. So she is officially signed to Impact, which is very cool. She's young. She has a lot of growing to do. She's a little undersized, but the good thing about it is that she's continuing to move. And there's nothing terrible about her. It's just that there's nothing that is exceptional about her either. She's just kind of another female wrestler. Danny Luna, they've been doing this whole thing where she's, I don't want to say, she's like a power type wrestler where they kind of compare her to being like a mini version of Jordan Grace. I think they did that when they were in Impact together. I think they wrestled against each other actually. So Danny Luna was a member of Subculture who used to be in NXT UK. Now I think they're in Impact as well. Mark Andrews was also, from the old TNA. Everybody else is a carryover from the Impact era. Giselle Shaw wins the match. Everybody knows how. If you don't know how I feel about Giselle Shaw, I'm not going to go into it because it should be obvious. Also, Scott D'Amore is. I'm not going to go into it. Let's not go into it. All right. Let's not be negative on this grand day. How about that? Let's not be negative. It's going to be very hard to not be negative because the next match was PCO versus Dirty Dango. When I talked about that purge before, PCO should definitely be in that purge. I know he's an interesting character. The guy's like 60. He's over 60. He got to be at this point. This is Jean-Pierre Lafitte. Pierre of the Quebecers. He's still around. He's been doing this Frankenstein gimmick for about 6 years now. I don't get the interest in it. I mean, at first it was sort of an anomaly. This, substantially older guy who is flip-flop flying all over the place and taking these hellacious bumps. And you're like, wow, this guy's kind of an interesting performer. Like, he can't go, but he can take hella bumps. And it makes his matches very interesting. But after a while, you realize that, he's just an old guy taking a bunch of bumps. And you kind of start feeling bad for him. I know he was retired for a long time, so his body can probably handle it a little bit better because he hasn't been doing it, over and over and over again. But, geez Louise. Dirty Dango, still funny. He's still funny. He gets on the microphone and says that he hates TNA wrestling, which, of course, just gets boos. The match is immediately thrown out because Johnny Bravo, who was murdered on this show, but we found out that he wasn't really murdered, is still he was shot on this show, murdered, written off television, but now he's back, unmurdered, by the way. And he jumped PCO, so they jumped PCO. It was thrown out. Santino Marella, who is still here as well. He is the director of Authority, and he made a 6-man tag with Johnny Bravo, Dirty Dango, and Proteus, who is Vladimir Kozlov, who I forgot had came to TNA. So he's back. Jesus Christ. They're scraping the bottom of late 2000s WWF or WWE to find late 2010 WWE, probably like 2013 or something like that with these guys. And so they made it 6-man tag. So it's PCO, Rhino, who is also fat and still wrestling. I don't know why. And they're teaming up with Jake Something, who they've had on this roster for a long time, has a lot of potential, and they refuse to do anything with them. PCO, Rhino, and Jake Something defeat Johnny Bravo, Proteus, and Dirty Dango. Remember that purge I was talking about? Rhino should be on that list. So how many people we got so far? We got Tommy Dreamer. You could throw Crazy Steve on the fire if you want, but I'm not a big fan, but whatever. PCO, Rhino, probably should go. Dirty Dango is funny, so I'm not gonna suggest that they throw him on the barbecue. The next match was a surprise because there was no announced Knockouts Tag Team Championship match. So they had a Knockouts Championship match. Killer Kelly and Masha Slamovich, aka MK Ultra, they were defeated by the Decay, Havoc, and Rosemary. Interestingly enough, Havoc and Rosemary have been wrestling as Courtney Rush and Jessica, which is their alter egos for a while. So these two teams have pretty much been wrestling each other for like weeks. I don't think there's been another like legitimate tag team in this division in a really long time. I can't tell you when the last time they had like a real tag team in this division. But Killer Kelly and Masha Slamovich had a great run. They were a good team. I like both of them. Rosemary and Havoc, they're fine together. I don't see how this is meaningful in any way. Rosemary has not added much to this roster in a long time. She's one of those people that's kind of grandfathered in, where, she has done so much for the company that, you kind of have to let her run free and let her do what she does. But if this is not going to be a division, I don't understand the point of this. This was why take the belts off of Killer Kelly and Masha Slamovich for the pop. That seems pointless to me. I didn't pop when they lost. I can tell you that much. I wasn't in the good spirits when they lost. So let's go to another person who was sort of grandfathered in, despite the fact that I don't think they add much to the roster anymore. Chris Sabin. Chris Sabin defends the X Division Championship, defeating El Hijo del Vikingo and Kushida. Okay. So this match is exactly what an X Division match should be. There's a lot of fast-paced match stuff, a lot of really crazy spots. They tried a 3-man collar and elbow tie-up, which immediately took me out of it because I was like, are you serious? A 3-man collar? You like you're huddling. How do 3 people do a collar and elbow tie-up and do it legitimately? There's just no way. At one point, Kushida put them both in the hoverboard lock, which means he had 2 people's arms. I was just like, they just being silly at this point, right? This is just a silly match. Anyway, Chris Sabin hits El Hijo del Vikingo with a Canadian destroyer on the ramp. To my surprise, he actually sells it and doesn't come back into the match afterwards, allowing Chris Sabin to defeat Kushida with the cradle shock. Again, we're at this point where I don't see how Chris Sabin being on this roster benefits the company. He's been around for so long that he's an also-ran. I don't think he energizes the show. I don't feel like he actually adds anything. I'm not saying he's a bad performer. I'm saying he doesn't add anything. He's like wallpaper. He's like furniture. Like, he's here. You can enjoy him, but nobody's ever going to be excited about it. Nobody's ever going to, talk about it like it when you first got it. When you first get a new couch, everybody compliments you on your new couch. Like, I love this couch. It's all soft and comfortable. But 10 years later, if that couch is still there, nobody puts over the couch anymore. Everybody's just kind of like, it's a couch. I remember when you first got this thing. That's kind of how it is with Chris Sabin. He's been in TNA for 20 years or something to that effect. This guy's just been around forever. And him still being the X Division champion, to me, is a mistake. I think that this is your opportunity to do something different, but to keep it on Chris Sabin, that's a mistake. Unless you got some huge plan, which I haven't seen, or there was nothing that was hinted at. This is a mistake. We should be moving on from guys like Chris Sabin. I'm not saying that she should be fired and thrown on the barbecue with everybody else, but I'm just saying that I don't think he adds anything to the product anymore. El Hijo del Vikingo does a lot of spots, and he makes his spots look like spots. But then again, the guy's very young. All right, the match I was most looking forward to: Alexander Hammerstone versus Josh Alexander. This was also the first match to really have any sort of storyline implications attached to it, as Alexander Hammerstone finally becomes a free agent from MLW, and he puts out a video saying that he is not asking for an opportunity, he's willing to give one. So he put out an open challenge, to which Josh Alexander accepted, and then said that I'm willing to give you the opportunity to be on TNA, the rebirth of TNA. So he decided to have this match here, and I have to say, it was fun. It was a very fun match. Josh Alexander won. Did not like that. Did not like that. Now I'm guessing Hammer is not going to hang around. That's my guess. Because if he is going to hang around, I don't see why he had to lose to Josh Alexander. I'm not a big fan of Josh Alexander. He's boring. And that's one of the biggest crimes that you could possibly have in wrestling. You could suck. Because a lot of people suck. You could be really good. You could be nothing, or you could be boring. And boring is the worst. Josh Alexander is not the best wrestler. He doesn't have an interesting look. He doesn't have an interesting gimmick. He's not a great promo. It's just, he's there. He's just a guy who's present. I've been watching Josh Alexander in Impact for a long time. Nothing has jumped out at me as being, yes, I really am a big fan of this guy. Meanwhile, Alexander Hammerstone was great. He was really good here. He did a lot of his power spots. He looked good. The intensity level between the two of them was was okay. I don't feel like they was really like tearing into each other, but it was more of a respect match anyway. But they still did some really cool stuff here with Alexander Hammerstone hitting some really cool moves, some power moves and stuff like this. So the match wasn't terrible. wasn't a bad match. I was just kind of unsatisfied with the finish, but I understand that Impact wants to go with the guy who's going to be there if Hammer is not staying. If Hammer is staying, again, I don't understand why you don't put him over and make him look strong from the beginning. It's kind of goofy to go with Josh Alexander, but Scott D'Amore loves him some Josh Alexander. He really does, and I don't understand why. I do really appreciate that the commentary was putting over Hammerstone's championships in MLW as if they mattered. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I'm a big fan of Alexander Hammerstone. So I watched his show basically to see this match because I wanted to see how he was going to perform on this stage, and he did really good. The sixth match on the show, Tag Team Championships, the Rascals versus Laredo Kid and Mike Bailey versus the Grizzled Young Vets, not the Grizzled Young Veterans, versus Austin Bay Club or ABC. And ABC won this match. Interesting decision. I like Austin Bay Club. I don't understand why they're still doing Bullet Club shit. I don't understand why that's a part of what they do. I don't understand why people are still doing Bullet Club in 2024. Like, this is such a 2014 idea for people to be still, hanging on, clutching on to the Bullet Club. It's very strange because the Bullet Club is falling apart in Japan. Like half the guys are fucking leaving, it seems like. But it's a very weird decision to keep these guys as members of the Bullet Club. I mean, as a tag team, they're good. I don't have a problem with that. The Rascals, of course, are really good too. Zachary Wentz and Trey Miguel. Myron Reed, I thought he was an Impact. I haven't seen him since he made his one appearance. Hopefully he's still there. I would like for the Rascals to go forward as, a 3-man team. And they've been feuding with Austin Bay Club or the ABC. They've been feuding with them. So that's been very cool. They, at the end of the match where ABC won, they teased that they're going to continue feuding with the Grizzled Young Vets or the JYV. The Grizzled Young Veterans, of course, came over from NXT UK to regular old NXT. Oh boy, they bombed. I mean, they went complete Hiroshima and ended up in Schism where they had to play gimmicks. And then they got very upset that they had to be gimmicks and thought that they were better than that. They weren't. And now they're being boring still, except for now they're being given a shot in Impact. I'm willing to give them a chance to prove that they're not boring, but I haven't seen anything from them that has been entertaining. They're actually good talkers, believe it or not. They just don't have anything to say. Except for, we're grizzled young veterans. Grit your teeth. And it's like, okay. But they've been floating around for a while. Maybe if they get into a storyline here, it'll be interesting. But otherwise, I could take or leave those guys. They seem like European FTR. European FTR just is not amazing to me. They're good wrestlers though, and they can talk, but they're boring. I don't know. It's a European thing, I think, where a lot of European guys just do not develop charisma. Laredo Kid and Mike Bailey is a very odd team. I know Laredo Kid is a fill-in. It's also a very weird decision that they wouldn't have anything to do for Mike Bailey for this show. That Mike Bailey, who is one of the guys that if you talk about indie wrestling, his name eventually comes up. But he has not been positioned as being a top guy in Impact at all. I think he was X Division champion for a short amount of time, but it wasn't long at all. I'm not saying that, Mike Bailey should be world champion or anything like that. I'm not a huge fan of Mike Bailey. He's kind of boring too. But you would think that they would position him a little bit better, considering his stature in indie wrestling is pretty high. But no. And you also think they would treat Laredo Kid better because he's fucking awesome. So there's a lot of guys in this match that I like. And I didn't hate this. I thought this was good. The 7th match on the show, Trinity loses the Knockouts Championship to Jordynne Grace. This was a great match. This was really good. They worked well together. I enjoyed the hell out of this. Jordynne Grace, though. Is there anybody in wrestling that is more stuck in a rut than Jordynne Grace? I mean, I know we've been talking about Chris Sabin and Josh Alexander, and these people, you're kind of like, you shrug that they're present. Jordynne Grace, at the very least, has changed so much. Like when she was pudgy, sort of Miss Piggy looking Jordynne Grace, she was still in the same position as she is now, and she's like super muscular, buff Barbie Jordynne Grace, except for she didn't get new boobs. So it's like she went and did all that work just to end up in the same place that she was in before. And it's like, that sucks, because she worked very hard and she actually got so much better in the ring too. It sucks that she seemingly can't go any higher. Clearly she can't go any higher because this is the women's championship. So clearly she can't go any higher, but she's also not doing much of anything either. I think she kind of peaked with her feud with Mickie James. And it's unfortunate that, Jordynne Grace is being the right person to beat Trinity, and Trinity's leaving. That's the right decision to make. But Jordynne Grace kind of being stuck in TNA in perpetuity forever, never being an opportunity to work on a bigger stage, kind of odd. But then again, maybe TNA becomes a bigger stage later on. You never know. But Trinity's leaving. She's Mercedes and Bailey were both there in the crowd. They were dressed like widows in the rafters like Sting. Try to watch Trinity have her last match in Impact. Trinity has been champion her entire Impact run, or her entire TNA run. Well, technically it was Impact. A lot of fans are actually disappointed that Trinity is leaving because they figure, hey, they're rebuilding TNA. There's an opportunity there for her to be one of the pillars for the rebuilt company. Why go back to WWE? And, she's probably not going to get pushed over some of the girls who they're pushing now, while she has an opportunity to be a centerpiece, a core piece of TNA. And I think that's a really good argument to make. I love Naomi. I really do. Big fan. I hate that she decided to leave the same damn week I put her in the intro, but she's a really good talent. I've always thought she was a really good talent. Her weakness has always been that she can't really cut promos. But being athletic, being colorful, being charismatic, she can do that. She's a star. She can actually help TNA. I don't think she can help WWE that much. I think WWE moved on from Naomi 4 or 5 years ago. Naomi's in the same position that Dolph Ziggler is in. And Dolph Ziggler is a guy we'll talk about later, where she's sort of the girl version, where she's been in WWE so long that the people don't really appreciate her anymore. And they are more attached to other people. I think that her coming back to WWE is a big positive, in so much as that it kind of it's doing what Triple H wants to do in terms of blowing away a lot of that negative heat that in the last days of Vince. All the people who got fired, Triple H is bringing them back. There was heat between Mercedes and Trinity and the company, and he's trying to assuage all of that. So it's good for that perspective that he's going to bring her back. But it might not be the best for her to go back. I know she might want to work with her husband, but I think it might actually do well for her to actually develop herself outside the company more. Because I think that's what she was doing these last few months. She was developing herself as a top star, as a centerpiece. And I think she could have been that for TNA, while she's just going to be another girl on the roster for WWE. But I thought the match was really good. The match itself was cool. They established her starstruck submission hold throughout her time, and by her I mean Trinity, throughout her time in TNA Impact. And in this match, Jordynne Grace just powered out of it. Like, she just stood up while she was in the hold, which was crazy. Like, I was like, yeah, she's definitely leaving, because they just shit all over her finish. So she wins with the Juggernaut driver, or what they used to call the Grace driver. Very cool. At ringside was Ash by Elegance, who is Dana Brooke. And the amount of negativity I saw about this was unreal. There was so many people who were just like, she's ripping off Toni Storm. All right, so let me give you the description. The Ash by Elegance character, I don't know what it is, because we haven't seen her do anything. The only thing she has done would show up in a limousine and get out. That's what she did. We saw her from behind. We didn't know who it was at first. And then at the beginning of the Knockouts Championship match, she's at ringside. She's got a manservant with her, and she's wearing sort of a fur coat that's kind of like around her biceps, like how women who are, glamorous wear these things. She's wearing a gown. She's got stylized hair or whatever, blonde, of course. And everybody just immediately said she's trying to rip off Toni Storm, as if this gimmick has never been done before. Like, for starters, the glamorous female character has been done 100,000 times. And, if you know anything about old Hollywood, you know that was an archetype. There was like Marilyn Monroe and Jane Mansfield and so many other women who had a similar look and a similar presentation, because that was what Hollywood was going for. Unfortunately, people have just decided, without even going into her cutting any promos, her doing any vignettes, or her doing anything, that she's trying to rip off Toni Storm. And it's like, I don't see that yet. Sure, she's got a manservant and she has stylized hair, but I don't see that being a ripoff yet. Let's see her actually do some ripping off first. The name is Ash by Elegance, and I thought that was very odd because it makes her sound like perfume. And I didn't get that. And maybe it's not meant to be gotten. Maybe it's going to be explained at some other time. But her real name is Ashley, so that explains the Ash part. She's glamorous, so I guess that explains the elegance part. But how is it Ash by Elegance? I don't know. Maybe she's going to be a model or something, like Rick the Model Martel. Maybe that's the gimmick. Maybe that's where she's going with this. So the main event, Alex Shelley is defeated by Moose. Moose wins the TNA World Championship. I was surprised it was clean, to be quite honest, but this match was boring. I didn't care about this at all. Alex Shelley put him in the same pile with Chris Sabin and Josh Alexander. Well, these guys have just been there. Josh Alexander is not as old as Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley, but he's been there for so long. Look, Alex Shelley being the world champion was fine as a novelty idea, to congratulate him for how long he was there and all the effort he put in to building TNA. But this thing went on for entirely too long. And I don't think Moose is the right guy to put it on either, because I think Moose kind of sucks too. Moose is athletic, and they put over his athleticism so much in this match. But he's kind of dead weight. He's also been a guy who's been there for a while. Moose has been in TNA for 10 years, I think. Like, it's been a long time. When you talk about rebirth and rebranding and doing these different, you should be going in a different direction. Just tossing the belt among the guys that have already been there ain't exactly lifting up the company. It's not exactly putting you on a different path. It's the same people, just different branding. And that doesn't scream new and fresh to me. It's like you're trying to rehash things. I get it though. It's very difficult for TNA to get talent because a lot of people would rather work Ring of Honor or, low level AEW shows or be signed to NXT than come over to TNA. But for Christ's sake, bro, when I heard that Moose had a stable and it's called The System, which sounds incredibly boring, and the stable is consisting of Brian Myers, who sucks ass. I mean, complete ass. Whole ass. I mean, Jada Kingdom ass. I mean, Megan Thee Stallion ass. I'm talking Yokozuna ass. That's how much ass Brian Myers sucks. And then you have the other guy in the stable is Eddie Edwards. Are you fucking serious? Your new rebranding of your company features a stable of Moose, who's been there for a decade, and nobody's excited to see him really. Eddie Edwards, who fucking blows, by the way, and Brian Myers, who sucks even more than Moose and Eddie Edwards, and then of course Alicia Edwards, who is also not good at anything. This is not off to a good start. This is not off to a good start. Anyway, Moose won the match. His stable came out near the end to distract Alex Shelley, and then Kushida and Chris Sabin, who are, form a stable with Alex Shelley. They fought those guys off. There was a football player in this stable too, apparently. I don't remember what his name was, but he was wearing a suit. I thought he was Reginald from from NXT. I was like, what the hell is Reggie doing there? But I don't remember what the football player's name was. Apparently he played with Moose, so now he's bringing him into football. So after Moose wins clean, which again surprises me, Nick Nemeth attacked Moose from behind. The crowd went nuts. Everybody was very excited about Nick Nemeth signing. It was the right move. It's the right move for both parties. This is a move that probably should have happened 10 years ago. I know Ryan Nemeth basically says that he's been trying to talk Nick into leaving for a decade. And I'm like, man, he probably should have left a long time ago. I think people stopped appreciating Dolph Ziggler a long time ago. And I think mentally he probably didn't mentally check out until like 2017. But I think people didn't really care about him even before that. And I'm at 2017, I think that was after he had that big feud with The Miz. I think that was sort of the big finish to the Dolph Ziggler character. And I don't think he ever got back to that point. And I don't think he was ever going to reach that point again. Him and The Miz did some really fantastic stuff. And I don't think he was ever going to go beyond that. So I think mentally it was like kind of over after that. But he probably should have left even before then. This is a classic TNA move. Guys who should have been main event guys in WWE getting the opportunity to spread their wings, stretch their legs, and be main event guys elsewhere. That's what TNA was always good for. Mr. Kennedy, Christian, Kurt Angle for a long time. Kurt Angle was, yes, a main event guy in WWE, but he was being downplayed. As he's being moved to ECW when he decided to jump ship to TNA. And I know Painkillers had a lot to do with that. But he was already being moved aside. And it was an opportunity to revitalize his career. If in a healthy TNA, Dolph Ziggler would have been a fantastic signing. Here is just good. It's appropriate. These two they work well together. Nick Nemeth would have been just another face, just another name if he went to AEW. Here, he can be a star. He can be somebody that people tune in to see. This is a good move. Downstate is going to do his theme song, and they put out a snippet of it. And it's like a hard rock 80s type of song. It's very similar to like Bon Jovi or something like that. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. And it fit the gimmick that he's going with now. So Nick is going to be doing New Japan and TNA. And that seems to be the sort of the new thing that these guys are going to do. TNA and saying something else, because I know AJ Francis is also doing GCW events. He's building up a feud with Zack Ryder. Matt Cardona. He's still Zack Ryder to me. But okay, fine, I suppose. But I love this Nick Nemeth signing. I think it's fantastic. I think it works for both sides. Can't wait. I know they already booked his first opponent. Is Zachary Wentz of the Radicals, a young guy who can, do a lot of the bumps and the acrobatics. They ought to have a kick-ass match. So I'm looking forward to seeing and following Dolph Ziggler, aka Nick Nemeth, and his run in Impact. Or TNA. This ought to be fun. It ought to be fun. Now, in terms of the show in and of itself, it was a typical Impact show where it features so many guys that I don't want to see in positions that they shouldn't be in. I have repeatedly said, and it's been my biggest complaint of Impact shows. I mean, you can go back and look at. I review Impact pay-per-views. I don't review the regular show, but the pay-per-views. Every single pay-per-view, I complain about the roster every single time, no matter who they add. They don't take away the right people. They just keep having the same motherfuckers in the same positions. And I just be like, oh my God, this company will not grow. It will not feel fresh. It will not feel new. It will not feel different until you take risks and do different things. More so than a signing, they need a purge. They need to start releasing people and to rebuild their roster. There are tons of young pro wrestlers who need somewhere to go. Impact TNA could be that place. Why do they insist on Tommy Dreamer and PCO and Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley and, you know, the Moose, the same people that we've been watching for a decade, the same people who didn't move the needle while during the Impact era, are the people ushering us into TNA, the new rebirth of TNA. That's not a rebirth. That's an abortion. It's the same fucking people. It's the same people. You just changed the letters. It's the same thing. Like that has been my biggest issue with this company. Not the storylines, because even though there are very few, it's been when they get somebody who's good, they push them, but then they don't stick around. Look at the Trinity situation. Mickey James was another one. They'll get somebody who's really good, and they'll push them, and then they'll be like, I'm out of here. It's time to go. And then the people who stay, they are just there forever. Or, you know, or they'll have glimpses of talented people, Ace Austin, Chris Bay, Jake something, Alexander Hammerstone on this show. There have been other people who have come through the doors of Impact who you say, you know what, they might be able to do something, man. They might have something. And then they either don't stick around or Impact just pushes them to the bottom of the card in favor of the same people that they've been pushing for the last 5 years. If you're going to rebuild this company and you had all this time, they have been off TV for over a month. They have not taped any new shows for over a month. You could have done so much more to put effort in to rebuild this roster. And I'm not saying that you just absolutely go through and start shredding people, but this is the problem. You had Scott D'Amore, who was the boss of Impact. He's still the boss in TNA. He's still pushing the same people because they're still his friends. He still sees value in them, and the audience is still not watching. They're still not watching. So something has to change. If you really are serious about making a run for it, especially now that AEW, which, you know, will always have more money and probably run bigger buildings and probably sell more tickets than the TNA. If you want to compete with them, because AEW is weak now. People are looking for something different, something to energize them. You know, this is the right time to rebuild TNA because AEW is looking lethargic out here. People are looking at their shows and Edge is on the show and Dustin Rhodes is on the show and Ric Flair is on the show and Sting's on the show. You're like, wow, AEW is getting older and older. And then you turn on to fucking Impact or TNA and you got fucking Tommy Dreamer and PCO and Moose and Alex Shelley. These guys been around forever. Except for they're not Sting or Ric Flair. They got their own old ass roster, and these guys are not The Rock. These guys are not Sting. They're not Ric Flair, and they're still holding on to them forever. Let these fuckers go. I hate to be that way, but this is, if you really care about this company, you have to tell the truth. This channel is built on truth. This company will not grow as long as they keep making the same mistakes with their roster. They do not have anybody interesting that grabs people. They're not making stars. That's the long and the short of it. They have not made a star. They have a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of people on this roster that they can make stars out of. They haven't done it. And it's very unfortunate. But I think that the energy around this TNA Rebirth is going to be gone by their next main event. By their next pay-per-view, it's going to be gone. Because you look at it, it's the same fucking people every time. The same people that it was in mid-2023 are the same people on the top of the card now. Same people as the champions now. You're like, what's different? Same bookers, same, same everything. What's different? And the rebirth of TNA is just an extension of Impact. And it's very unfortunate. Thank you guys for your time, though. I appreciate you. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.